A mother sat by her little child. She was so worried, so full of sorrow. The child was very pale. His little breaths were getting weaker. Every now and then he would gasp for air. It was a sound that broke her heart into 1,000 pieces. The mother looked at her child's small, still face. She saw the shadow of sickness that had settled there. Her heart ached with a pain so deep it felt like a part of her was fading away with him. She held his tiny hand, praying for a miracle. She prayed for the fever to break, for the color to return to his cheeks, for his bright eyes to open and look at her once more with love and life. Her love for him was a fire that burned inside her. It was a feeling so powerful, it filled every corner of her being. She would have done anything, absolutely anything, to take his place. She would have gladly taken all his pain and made it her own. For days she had not closed her eyes. She watched him constantly, never leaving his side. She smoothed his hair and whispered soft words of comfort. She sang him the lullabies he loved, even though her voice was trembling with unshed tears. Every moment was precious, a fragile gift she was terrified of losing. She was a guardian, a protector, standing watch over the most important person in her world. The room was quiet, except for the sound of the child's shallow breathing. The world outside seemed to disappear. There was only this small room, this small bed, and her immense love. She thought about all the dreams she had for him. She dreamed of watching him grow, of hearing his laughter fill their home. She pictured him running in the fields, strong and healthy. These dreams were now like distant stars, beautiful but so far away. The reality was this quiet, tense waiting. She felt so alone in her fear, yet her love made her strong. It was a heavy burden, but one she carried with all her might, because he was her everything. She pressed her lips to his forehead, feeling the unhealthy heat. It was a constant reminder of the battle he was fighting. A tear rolled down her cheek and fell onto his hand. It was a tear of love, of fear, of helplessness. She felt a profound sense of injustice. Why did this have to happen to her innocent child? He had just begun his life. There was so much he had yet to see and do. As she sat there in the dim light, she made a silent promise to him. She would not give up. She would fight for him until her very last breath. Her love was a shield, and she hoped with all her heart that it would be enough to save him. In the darkest hour of the night, as the mother finally closed her weary eyes for just a moment, a visitor arrived. He did not knock on the door. He did not make a sound. He came into the room like a cold shadow, silent and unseen. This visitor was Death. He was an old, stooped man wrapped in a large cloak. He moved with a quiet purpose that chilled the air. He did not look at the mother. His gaze was fixed only on the small, pale child lying in the bed. He had come to do his work, a duty as old as time itself, a task that could not be argued with or delayed. The mother had been so tired, her body, heavy with sorrow and lack of sleep, had betrayed her. She had leaned her head against the chair, and for a single, fleeting second, she drifted away. In that one moment, the visitor acted. Death reached out his long, bony fingers and gently lifted the child from the bed. He held the boy in his arms as if he were a fragile treasure. He did not rush. He moved with a slow, deliberate grace. The child did not cry or stir. It was as if he were simply being carried from one sleep into another, a deeper and more peaceful one. The room grew colder, emptier. When the mother's eyes snapped open a moment later, she felt the change immediately. The silence in the room was different. It was no longer the silence of watchful waiting. It was the silence of absence. She looked at the bed, and her heart stopped. The small blanket was there, but the child was gone. A cold dread washed over her, a feeling more terrible than any she had ever known. She jumped to her feet, her eyes wide with panic. She called her child's name. her voice cracking with fear. She searched the small room, her hands trembling, but she knew, deep down she knew who had come. An old clock in the corner ticked loudly, marking the seconds of her new terrible reality. The window was open, and a cold gust of wind blew in, making the curtains dance like ghosts. She ran to the window and looked out into the black night. She saw the old man, Death, walking away in the distance. He was moving quickly, carrying her child. A cry of pure anguish escaped her lips. Without a second thought for her own safety, without even putting on her shoes, she ran out of the house. She ran into the cold, dark night, following the shadow that held her entire world in his arms. Her journey had just begun. The mother ran into the darkness, her bare feet cold against the frozen ground. The path was dark and she could barely see. Her only guide was the memory of the direction Death had taken. Soon she came to a place where the path split in two. She did not know which way to go. It was there she met a woman dressed in black robes. The woman was Night. The mother cried out to her, "Have you seen Death pass by with my little child?" Night looked at the desperate mother with her dark, sorrowful eyes. She felt a kind of pity for this frantic soul, lost in the vast expanse of her domain. Night spoke in a voice as soft as a whisper. "Yes, I have seen him, but I will not tell you which path he took unless you sing to me. You must sing me all the songs you ever sang to your child." The mother did not hesitate. Her heart was breaking, but her will was strong. She thought of the sweet lullabies, the happy nursery rhymes, the simple tunes that used to make her child smile. She began to sing. Her voice was filled with sorrow, and as she sang, her tears fell like rain. She sang every single song, pouring all her love and memory into the cold, dark air until her voice was gone and she could sing no more. When the last song was finished, Night pointed down one of the paths. "Go this way," she said. The mother thanked her with a nod and ran onward, her hope renewed. But her journey was far from over. Soon the path ended at a great, dense thorn bush. The bush was covered in sharp, cruel thorns, and there was no way to get around it. The thorn bush blocked her way completely, a wall of wood and spikes. It had no leaves, only ice-cold thorns, because it was the middle of winter. The mother knew she had to pass through it to continue her search for her beloved child. The thorn bush spoke to her, its voice like the scratching of dry branches. "I will let you pass," it said, "if you will warm me. I am freezing to death. You must press me to your heart and warm me with your own body." The mother looked at the sharp thorns. She knew it would be painful, but the thought of her child gave her courage she never knew she possessed. She opened her arms and pressed the cold, thorny bush against her chest. She held it tightly, feeling the thorns pierce her skin. Warm drops of her blood fell onto the branches, and a deep, burning pain spread through her, but she did not let go. As the mother's warm blood flowed onto the thorn bush, something miraculous happened. The ice on the branches melted away. Tiny green buds began to sprout, and then in the middle of the cold winter night, the bush burst into bloom with beautiful white flowers. The pain was immense, but the mother's heart was filled with a single purpose. The thorn bush, now alive and warm, parted its branches to create a path for her. She stumbled forward, weak and bleeding, but she did not stop. Her love was a force stronger than any pain, a light that guided her through the darkest of trials. She had given her blood, and the way forward was now clear. She continued on, her body aching, until she came to a large, deep lake. There was no boat, no bridge, nothing to help her get to the other side. The water was dark and mysterious, and she could see no end to it. How could she possibly cross? As she stood on the shore, feeling hopeless, the lake spoke to her. Its voice was deep and hollow like water echoing in a cave. "I will carry you across," the lake said, "but you must give me your eyes. They are as clear as pearls, and I have always wanted such jewels for my collection. Weep them out for me, and I will take you to Death's great greenhouse." The mother thought of her child's sweet face, his smile, the way he looked at her. The thought of never seeing him again or anything else was terrifying. But what were her eyes compared to getting her child back? Without her eyes, she could not see the sun, the flowers, or the faces of loved ones. But her child was her entire world, the light of her life. So she began to cry. She cried until her beautiful eyes fell from their sockets and sank into the water like two precious pearls. The pain was blinding, a new kind of darkness, but she did not falter in her resolve. Now blind, the mother was lifted by the lake. The water carried her gently, like a leaf floating on a current. She could not see where she was going, but she could feel the movement. She trusted the lake to keep its promise. It carried her across the vast dark water and set her down on the opposite shore. She stood there alone in the darkness, having given up her songs, her blood, and her sight. Each sacrifice had been a piece of herself, a testament to the boundless love she held in her heart. She had given everything, and still her journey was not complete. The final challenge was yet to come. The mother stood on the strange shore, blind and exhausted, but driven forward by her love. She felt her way until she came to a large building. It was a giant greenhouse, warm and strange. This was Death's garden. She could feel the humid air and smell the scent of countless flowers and plants. An old woman, the caretaker of the garden, found her there. The caretaker saw the mother's blind eyes and felt pity for her. She knew this was a mother who had followed her child all the way to the threshold of the afterlife, a feat of incredible love and determination. The caretaker agreed to help her. "Death will be back soon," she said. "He moves very fast, but I can help you." She led the blind mother into the vast greenhouse. Inside, it was like a world of its own. Millions of plants, from tiny flowers to great towering trees, grew in pots. Each plant represented a human life. Some were strong and healthy, full of vibrant green leaves and bright blossoms. Others were weak and drooping, their flowers pale and wilting. Every soul on earth had its counterpart here, a living plant that reflected its journey and its health. It was a place of quiet, constant growth and decay. The mother could not see, but she could feel the life force all around her. Her heart beat faster. She knew her child's life flower must be here somewhere. "How will I find him?" she asked, her voice filled with desperation. The caretaker explained that each plant had a human heartbeat. The mother could listen for it. So the blind mother moved slowly through the endless rows of plants. She put her hand on each pot, trying to feel the familiar rhythm of her child's heart. She passed by strong oak trees representing long, powerful lives, and delicate ferns representing fragile ones. Finally, she felt it. Among a row of little flowers, her hand touched a small pot. Inside, a tiny blue crocus was drooping, its petals pale and withered. She felt the faint, familiar beat of her child's heart coming from the little plant. It was him. Her heart swelled with a mix of joy and sorrow. She had found him. She knelt down and held the little pot close to her chest, the same way she had held the thorn bush. She was ready to protect this little flower with her life. She would not let death take him from her again. She would stand and fight for this one fragile life. Just as the mother held the small flower to her heart, Death returned to his garden. He was a tall, imposing figure, and his voice was as cold as the grave. "How did you find your way here?" he asked. The mother, blind but fearless, stood up to face him. "I am a mother," she said, her voice shaking but strong. "Give me back my child." Death looked at her empty eye sockets and her bleeding chest. He saw the power of her love, a force that had overcome every obstacle he had placed in her path. He knew he could not simply take the child from her by force. Instead, death offered her a choice. He was not cruel, only an agent of a will far greater than his own. "Look into this deep well," he said, leading her to a dark pool of water in the corner of the garden. "I will give you back your sight for a moment. In the water, I will show you the lives of 2 children. One is the life your child will have if you take him back. The other is the life he will have if you leave him with me." The mother leaned over the well, and as she did, her sight returned. She looked into the dark water, and 2 visions appeared before her, clear as day. The first vision showed her child's future if he returned to the world of the living. She saw a life filled with poverty, struggle, and sorrow. She saw sickness and pain following him through the years. She saw him suffer from misfortune and heartbreak. His life would be a constant battle, a journey of hardship with very little joy. It was a future of misery and despair. Her heart broke to see it. This was not the happy life she had always dreamed for him. It was a curse, a path of suffering that she would be forcing upon him by bringing him back. Then the second vision appeared. It showed the other future, the one that awaited him if he stayed here. In this vision she saw peace. She saw her child in a beautiful light-filled place, free from all pain and sorrow. He was smiling, happy, and surrounded by a gentle, loving light. There was no struggle, no sickness, no tears. It was a future of pure tranquility and endless peace. It was a world where he would never know suffering again. The mother looked from one vision to the other, the terrible truth settling upon her like a heavy cloak. She now understood the choice she had to make. The mother looked at the 2 futures reflected in the dark water. One was a life of pain that she could give him, and the other was a life of peace that she would have to let him go to find. The choice was clear, but it was the most difficult choice a parent could ever make. Her heart wanted to cling to him, to bring him back home no matter the cost. Her love was selfish in that way. It wanted him near, but her love was also pure. A pure love wants what is best for the one it loves, even if it means personal heartbreak and loss. She turned away from the well, her temporary sight fading back into darkness. She faced death, but she no longer saw him as an enemy. She saw him as a guide, a messenger of a divine plan she could not fully understand. Her desperate fight was over. In its place was a new feeling, a deep, quiet acceptance. She realized that her own wishes were not as important as her child's well-being. To save him from a life of suffering was the greatest act of love she could perform. It was a love that asked for nothing in return, not even his presence. Tears streamed from her blind eyes, but they were not tears of anger or desperation anymore. They were tears of sacrifice and immense love. She reached out and gave the little flower pot back to Death. "Take him," she whispered, her voice filled with a sorrow so deep it was almost holy. "His future there is one of peace. It is better than the life I can give him. I understand now." She was letting go of her child, her dreams, her everything. She was choosing his happiness over her own. It was the ultimate sacrifice, the final gift from a mother's heart. The mother turned and walked out of the garden, leaving a part of her soul behind. She had lost her child, but she had gained a profound understanding. She had learned to trust in a power greater than herself, a wisdom that sees the whole picture when we can only see a small piece. She walked back into the world, a changed woman. She carried her sorrow, but she also carried the peace of knowing she had made the right choice. Her love had not failed. Instead, it had transformed into its purest form, the courage to let go, believing it was for the best.